welcome back. With me as my host today, trial lawyer Heather Hansen. And we are pleased to welcome in now Larry Klayman. He is the founder of Freedom Watch. He's a former federal prosecutor. Regular viewers know Larry quite well. Larry, good to see you.
Bill and Heather, how are you? Happy Labor Day.
Yeah, we're getting there. It's about time. I want to start with a story that broke basically today. It is a story about Senate investigators who have learned from aides to Comey at the FBI that the FBI Director Comey, then FBI Director Comey, had begun writing a letter of exoneration in the email scandal for Mrs. Clinton before his investigators had in fact interviewed Mrs. Clinton, before in fact his investigators had actually interviewed key witnesses in the case. I don't mean to misrepresent the good senator from Ohio, whom I have enormous respect for, Chuck Grassley, but to paraphrase him, it prompted Senator Grassley to go, something is wrong here. Larry, I'm sure it shocks you that Comey might have just decided she was innocent before she was even anything else.
Well, that's the understatement. We know, of course, Comey is corrupt in the way he's acted. At one time, he had some integrity, perhaps, when he went up against George W. Bush with regard to warrantless wiretaps. But this is what Washington does to people. And, of course, he became FBI director after that, and he had a stake in this matter. And he knew that if Mrs. Clinton became president of the United States, and it seemed likely at that time, there could be retribution. He could be fired. And obviously, it's interesting, we're talking about Labor Day, but obviously he was protecting himself, and he was putting himself in front of the American people. But there is a fear factor in Washington about Hillary Clinton, about Bill Clinton. They've always been above the law. I've taken them on when I ran Judicial Watch. I've taken them on at Freedom Watch. I have lawsuits against Hillary Clinton today over Benghazi for the families of the victims, Ty Woods and Sean Smith. But this is an outrage. It's something that needs to be investigated. If not, it already has. It's come out. And he needs to be prosecuted for that. And I might add, Bill, as you know, we have a lawsuit at Freedom Watch. You can find it at freedomwatchusa.org against Comey for burying an investigation into the wiretapping and mass surveillance against the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, other justices, 156 judges, President Trump when he was a businessman. I mean, this guy is corrupt 10 ways to Sunday, and he's getting a free pass at the current time. Mueller is looking at President Trump, trying to bring him down. He's leaving Comey alone, his friend.
And that's one of the things that I do worry about, Bill, is that this will sort of shed a bad light on the investigation of Trump. And ultimately, what we want is to be able to move forward with politicking, with governing, rather than be focused on this Russia investigation forever. And you want whatever Mueller recommends to be accepted by both sides. But when things like this come up, it makes it very difficult for people to accept it. The problem is, and I think Larry will probably agree with this, as lawyers, normally you get 2 years of discovery to just figure out all of the information that you need. But with these quick news cycles, we hear this thing about Comey, we hear this thing about Trump, we hear this thing about Clinton, and we never hear the follow-up. And so people come to conclusions and either lack faith in the government or put all their faith in the government, depending on which side they lean. And then we never really get to go through the course of what the courts were meant to do. So should Comey be further investigated and some sort of indictment passed? I don't know. But we won't know until the proper investigation happens. And in the meantime, with the quick news cycles, we hear this news and then people lose faith in the government, and that's the problem.
Oh, no, Larry, to Heather's point, I guarantee you in a week from now, a lot of people will forget this even happened.
That may be, but, this reminds me of Karnak the Magnificent on the Johnny Carson show, is that you get the answer and then you get the question. I apologize, my phone is ringing. Perhaps Hillary Clinton's calling me. Yeah. But
well, maybe Comey's calling. Maybe he's ready to move to dismiss a lawsuit or something, Larry.
This one once happened when I was on CNN Crossfire. And anyway, I apologize. But here's the thing here, is that what we know from this report is that Comey and the FBI had not even interviewed Hillary Clinton yet before he decided to dismiss the investigation, much less under oath. So obviously the fix is in. As Heather knows, as a fine lawyer, circumstantial evidence can be just as powerful as direct evidence. And I think there's enough evidence right now to, take legal action with regard to James Comey.
Well, in regards to the Russia investigation, we might have some circumstantial or direct. I don't know how you would define it, but we have Mueller reportedly looking at Paul Manafort, which is hardly a surprise, Larry, or at least not to me. But we know that Manafort worked for a pro-Russian lobby firm in Ukraine. We know he has direct Russian ties. I guess if you're looking for some low, easy meat to grab, he's pretty easy in this case.
That may be, but the other troubling aspect, as has been reported, is not just all of the leaks that are coming out of Mueller's office. He's the special counsel. He is technically part of the Justice Department. He's responsible to the Office of Professional Responsibility. He's been leaking information like a sieve, which is in violation of Rule 6E of the Rules of Criminal Procedure, grand jury matters. Mueller himself has acted unethically here. But now, apparently, he's teamed up with Eric Schneiderman, the Attorney General of New York, that hates Trump's guts, that tweets all kinds of derogative things about Trump. Regrettably, I get his emails for some reason I can't figure out. But it's obviously a fix here. They're trying to get around Trump possibly pardoning Manafort by getting him indicted under New York state law by using Schneiderman as a tool.
Larry, do you think
it's where it's all headed?
I mean, don't you agree with Bill, though, that Manafort really is low-hanging fruit? I mean, if you talk about circumstantial evidence, it is piling up day after day after day after day. And I think that it certainly is, whether there's leaks or not, that information is there, and it looks like it's going to be problematic for Manafort, to say the least.
Oh, it's certainly problematic. They are going to burn Manafort for sure, no doubt. He may get some kind of plea agreement. They'll find something to burn him on after all these years. His colleague, Roger Stone, who worked with him, who probably brought Manafort into the campaign, he's also at risk here. And other people in and around Trump. Mike Flynn, although I don't think Mike Flynn did anything wrong, they're going to burn him too. They always burn the low-hanging fruit, and they leave the higher-ups alone. And that's why the Clintons have walked off scot-free for all of these years. It's an unwritten rule between Democrats and Republicans in Washington. You burn the middle and lower-level people. You don't hold the higher-ups accountable. And that's why our justice system is broken down, and that's why there's a dual system of justice, and that's why even yours truly, you know, I fight as much as I can and hope that I get a good judge. And sometimes we break through, like with the NSA. But it's very tough because our system right now is so politicized and so compromised that the people that are truly guilty usually get off scot-free.
So do you think that ultimately this won't reach the echelons of Flynn, rather, and Trump himself?
I think it'll probably reach Flynn for no good cause. But Trump, no, he's a president. There's an unwritten rule you don't go after the president, but they'll burn everybody else around him. They want to impeach him, or they want to claim that he's incapable of continuing in office under the 25th Amendment because they claim he's not balanced. But they'll never go after the president because the Democrats know the next time a Democrat president's in there, he or she will be held accountable.
Yeah.
That's the...
Hey, really quickly, Larry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to get your quick reaction to this. Congressman Ron DeSantis introduced an amendment to the spending package that would basically fund the Special Prosecutor's Office for 180 days and then cut off money. Is this even a feasible piece of legislation? Is it even remotely have a chance of passing?
Zero. The Republicans have no guts. They have no chance. They'll roll over. Frankly, the Republican establishment would like to see President Trump gone. And there's already talk about them running a candidate in 2020 against him.
Well, you wrote a piece that we don't have really time to get into, but it was a piece for Newsmax called "The Left Dividing American Hopes of Taking Trump Down." Do you think they can do it? I mean, some days I worry that they can, but you give me the quick 20 seconds on that.
Well, they've already taken him down in a way. I mean, they've immobilized anything that he does. He can only use executive orders, and this is to the detriment of the American people, and this is the real tragedy. It's why I'm fighting so hard at Freedom Watch. If I may do a little ad here, freedomwatchusa.org, because somebody needs to step in there. We have an attorney general. We've talked about that before, Bill. He's been neutered. I mean, he's scared himself. He's been called a racist. He's under investigation by Mueller himself. We have no Justice Department. So therefore, Freedom Watch and others need to step up to the plate.
And on that, I'm going to thank you, Larry, because I got to hit a break. Kristen Tate will be here to talk about Hurricane Harvey next.